So can you tell me about the history of the co-op here?
Yeah, this co-op was started in around 1979, 1980. There are 15 houses in the co-op, and it was a self-supportive community co-op. And people have lived, my partner's lived here since that time. A lot of other people had lived here for a similar length of time, some people slightly shorter, but the majority were people that have been here from the beginning. And they've now been dispersed by Lambeth to all four corners of the borough. The strong community has gone completely, and mainly seems to be property developers that have bought these houses, and they ripped the guts out of them, which had been kept in nice original condition by the co-op, and then they charge huge amounts of rent.
Right. What was the rent in the old days under the co-op system?
Under the co-op system, the rent was £25 a week, which sounds very little, but there was a lot of skill sharing, skill swapping going on. So I'm a plumber, for instance. I did plumbing in people's houses. There was a carpenter who lived here, and other people that we knew, not necessarily in this co-op, but sometimes in other co-ops, and we'd help out that way. So the £25 a week covered major repairs that couldn't be done by Skillshare. And it proves that you can actually charge £25 a week rent when you're not doing it for profit, when you're doing it purely for the upkeep and maintenance of the houses. One that's recently been gentrified, shall we say, has now been up for rent at £650 a week.
Right.
A week. And I don't know who can afford that. There used to be a teacher who lived in there.
Right, yeah, indeed. And do you know what the council's done with the money they've got from the sales?
No, we can't find that out. Numerous freedom of information requests have been denied. They won't say exactly where the money goes, so we don't know. But we do know that this may be coincidence, but the new town hall project is budgeted at around 50 million. And they've made about 50 million so far from sales of short life houses, not just in this co-op, but all throughout the borough.
Right, so this is a policy they're following across the borough?
It is, yeah. And there's very, very few houses left now or houses, flats, properties left that were co-op run. The only people still left are people basically who are too ill to have been taken to court yet. One very sad case, which is a chap called Steve Drake. He was due to go to court to defend possession of his home of 30 years, with the council wanting to repossess it. He collapsed. This was April 2013. He collapsed just a few days before his court case because he was so stressed. He had a combination of heart attack and an epileptic seizure. He was in a coma for quite a long time after that. He hasn't really recovered. He's partially recovered. He can move his head and his hands very slightly. That's it. The rest of it, he's paralysed. He can't speak. He was in Trinity Hospice for a while recently, and he's now been moved to another care home. But all his friends believe that his collapse was a direct result of the stress of the possibility, well, it wasn't really a possibility, but the stress of losing his home.
And I'm sure many other residents are really suffering just the threat that hanging over your head. We feel like our home should be a place that's comfortable, safe, secure.
Absolutely.
And they're not in that situation anymore.
No. And this so-called short life recall, which is a very sort of innocuous name, but it's actually the destruction of long-standing self-supportive communities of around about, most of the co-ops in Lambeth are sort of 30 odd years old. Some are older. But the one thing they have in common is that they're all very strong, supportive communities, housing ordinary people. Some people over the years have become disabled or ill, and so the community looks after them. My partner has been due to go to court twice for defending possession of her home, and twice the doctor has said, no, you cannot go to court because you're at very high risk of a stroke or a heart attack because of the stress. There's another court date looming, end of the year. But the doctor has said the same thing. If the stress is like that and the blood pressure is so high, you are at extreme risk of that. She's worried that she's going to end up the same way as Steve.
So people are feeling very bullied,
absolutely.
very pressured, and communities obviously are breaking apart and some of the old supports have gone.
Yeah, Yes. So now in her particular case, there's only 2 other people, well, her and one other person left out of the co-op, out of an original 15 houses. If I'm not there to be her carer, there is nobody else around anymore. Whereas it used to be, people had keys to each other's houses. It was that very supportive. She could call on anybody at any time of the day or night. And that has gone.
And it sounds like that was pretty well the ideal community, the sort of thing we should be hoping for everybody.
Absolutely, it was, yeah. And people's lives, it sounds dramatic, but I actually do believe that people's lives are at risk from this horrible policy.